So what is the paleo diet? As you might suspect, the word paleo comes from the word Paleolithic, which is a certain time period in our history. That's why you'll hear a lot of the paleo dieters priding themselves and calling themselves cavemen. So, what do they eat? These cavemen, our ancestors, came before the agricultural revolution, which is thought to have brought all the modern day diseases that we now know of, including obesity. And the Paleolithic time period came way before processed foods, way before genetic engineering became the norm. In a nutshell, the paleo diet is a diet high in saturated fats, low carbohydrates, all organic, grass-fed, whole foods, free range, basically a diet that you would find in the wild. The reason why the paleo diet works in not just creating a healthy body, but also notorious at helping you lose weight, is because it tricks your body into burning fat by using fat as your fuel instead of using carbohydrates as your fuel, which is less effective anyway. By eating a lot of quality, natural, saturated fats that are known to be able to be processed by our body best, because that is what we are made of, is very effective in comparison to somebody who eats a ton of carbs. And that is what the modern day diet consists of, eating a lot of carbohydrates. But before, at the agricultural revolution, before the grains became a major staple in the diet, our ancestors just ate the whole animal, split it with their tribe, ate veggies that they foraged in the wild, and ate crops, nuts and fruits here and there. The paleo diet is naturally gluten-free, it's naturally dairy-free, it's obviously very low in sugar. It does have a little bit of fructose in it, but very rarely. And it involves eating the entire animal. And what I mean by this is that our ancestors didn't throw away certain parts of the animal just because they thought it looked gross. They ate the whole thing because they hunted that animal for days or for hours. So on the paleo diet, you'll see us eat our bone broths, and you'll see organ meats and certain parts of the animal that you would never dream of eating, but it really is delicious and it's very good for you. The paleo diet not only helps you lose weight, but it also gives you your pearly whites without needing to use products. It's just amazing. It's a kind of diet I personally believe that our bodies are made to eat. So what kind of meats? Paleo people do not shy away from their red meat. They don't shy away from eating a ton of eggs either. And both of these are in contrast with the current diet that is thought to be healthy today. Oh, not to mention, a diet high in saturated fat is also contradictory to what they tell you to eat nowadays in order to be healthy. But certainly I am not fat and I am in great shape. And eating this kind of diet really does, speak for itself. So red meats, a kind of red meat, it can come from cows, buffalo, pigs. What you really just need to focus on for the red meat is that it's quality. And what I mean by that is that it's organic, hopefully organic. You want to really look for grass-fed meats. And what grass-fed means is that that animal is eating exactly what it should be eating in nature. But after the proliferation of commercial farms, they've been force-feeding these animals grains and other things in order to fatten them up and make them sick and make them tasty because they're fat. So grass-fed means these animals are eating what they should have been eating in the first place and always should be eating. And that also includes what grass-fed butter means and grass-fed dairy and cheese, but which most paleo people don't do, but some do. And there are exceptions. So fats. The fats in this diet are mostly saturated, and it's mostly omega-3s. The omega-3 omega-6 ratio is, higher on the omega-3 end as opposed to omega-6. So that means it's mostly coming from animal fats instead of plant fats. So you've got your butter, you've got your egg yolks, fish. For fish, make sure that it's wild caught, and that again goes back to eating what's organic. Wild caught, as the name states, means that it is caught in the ocean and not farmed in some nursery out there and fed soy, corn, wheat, or what have you. Because it is evident that feeding animals foods that they're not supposed to be eating make them unhealthy and make them fat, and in turn make you sick, the consumer. As far as veggies go ahead and eat as much as you want. And there are, certain things here and there that some paleo people don't eat because of sugar content or because of mold content. But that's another topic for another day. Veggies, pretty much you have a free range of vegetables. Eat whatever you want. But veggies are different from the crops that I'm going to go into. Crops can be a little bit carbier, so you would only eat these things once in a while. Potatoes are very rich in carbohydrates, so you wouldn't really eat a whole lot of these. It's mostly your vegetables and your meats and your fats. Herbs are allowed, and your nuts and seeds. Fruits need to be kept at a minimum because of its fructose content. And berries are low in fructose in comparison with their other fruits. So that would be a type of fruit that is allowable or encouraged in the paleo diet if you choose to eat fruit. So ideally on the paleo diet, you will want to have, a slab of meat, your veggies, and some kind of crop like a sweet potato, all as is. But you might get confused the types of images you see on Instagram involving these paleo superstars. They have pancakes, they might have rice, they might have pizza, and all kinds of things. They might even have cake. So what gives, right? But if you want to just have fun on the paleo diet, not necessarily want to stick with just meat as is, or vegetables as is, or you can manipulate certain things here and there while keeping the philosophy in mind, keeping certain rules of the paleo diet in mind. I mean, it's the same with such as the vegan diet. They've got their veggie meats, but not all vegans eat veggie meat, right? But just to kind of change things up, keep things exciting, you can do that. And especially if you've got a lot of foods that you used to love eating before you went on a diet, you can still eat those things, changing ingredients here and there. Actually, probably the majority of it, while trying to keep the taste somewhat similar. You might get disappointed at first, but you'll quickly get used to it, especially if you've been cutting out sugar and cutting out fruit and cutting out a lot of the grains, flours. What are my favorites? I like to make cauliflower rice, which is rice made entirely of cauliflower ground. And you also got the mashed potatoes made of cauliflower mashed. On the paleo diet, you typically don't eat regular white potatoes. Some do, but it's mostly the sweet potatoes that are encouraged in the paleo diet for its health benefits. So I also like to make paleo pancakes and use almond butter, so it's flourless and definitely gluten-free. and zoodles made of zucchini, and I have a spiralizer that is able to make, different sized zoodles. Like if I want to make fettuccine zoodles or spaghetti zoodles, then I've got the type of blade to use for the spiralizer for that. So pizza crust can use either cauliflower or nut butter. I like to use my own or make my own flours. So I know that on the paleo diet you don't use or drink milk, but you can certainly make milk out of nuts by just soaking them. So you can use it for your recipes, and a lot of paleo people also like to use coconut milk as a substitute for milk in regular recipes. You'll find a lot of information online, lots of inspiration online, lots of big foodie bloggers. So can you eat out with a paleo diet? Yes, of course. Depending on how strict you are, just like with any diet, you can choose to eat out if you want to. There are certain restaurants such as Chipotle that are very good in keeping their produce fresh and sourcing their animal meats and other farm products correctly. If you're not so strict and you just want to experiment on the low carb philosophy behind the paleo diet, you can always go to any restaurant and not order the grains, not order the carbs, not order the bun when you want your hamburger. Another thing with eating out is if you don't mind being a pain to your waiter or to your chef or the people you're with, then you can certainly still go out and eat. You can ask them what ingredients are in the food that you are interested in, and they don't always list everything. Some places will have a gluten-free menu, thankfully, but there is a lot more to the paleo diet than just gluten-free. You can, and we've done this, ask the waiter what kind of oil they use to cook their food, and if you can have a choice, if they can cook it in butter, in real butter instead of margarine. I forgot to mention margarine. Margarine is another type of vegetable oil, usually made of canola oil, which is made of corn or soy. And you want to avoid that because our bodies do not process these things well. And probably 98% of the corn and soy in the entire world is made of GMO from Monsanto. So, and that ends up being in your system, and you do not want that. So avoid margarine for that reason, and do not be tempted by the price tag. Your body is not to be trifled with. You can also ask the waiter or chef, if it's not specifically labeled as gluten-free, if it's cooked on the same grill as the bread, their pancakes, or crusted whatever, then ask them if you can have a separate pan to cook your food in, and tell them all your allergies, even if you don't actually have them. Just tell them what you cannot have. So you can ask all these things and more when you go out on a paleo diet. And do your research ahead of time so you don't take up your friends or family members' time whenever you order or piss off your waiter. But of course, he's just gonna suck it up probably because he wants your tip. So there you have it. You can certainly eat out on a paleo diet if, depending on how strict you are. So we have avoided really eating out for the most part. Saves us some money. And also we are careful about what kind of water we use to cook our food. And that's another thing that is hard to avoid even when you go to an upscale restaurant that's supposedly healthy, including Chipotle. They will use tap water, but at home you can use your filtered water, or if you have well water you can use that, or you can use spring water, which is what we like to use. You will want to keep drinking your spring water instead of your tap water because you want to avoid all the antibiotics and all the stuff that is flushed down the drain. Spring water, you got your trace nutrients there. Speaking of trace nutrients, the kind of salt that paleo dieters eat is not just sea salt, but a certain type of salt that is generally considered safe from today's mercury-laden seas. and that is the pink salt or real salt, which doesn't look pink, but it still has some color to it. And those two kinds of salts get their color from the sediments in the caves that they are filtered through. So much like Fiji is supposedly the best water out there because it's being filtered by the mountains or the caves where these salts come from filter out all the toxins that exist in today's seas. They don't just filter it, by the way. It's accurately old salt from sea many, many years ago when the oceans and the seas were clean or cleaner than it is now. So that is a safe bet. And if you do just regular sea salt, you're still going to get all that mercury and all that from today's radioactive sea. You really want to embrace the whole philosophy behind the paleo diet because it's not just about losing weight. It really does change you. It doesn't just help you lose weight, but it creates a better you, a person who thinks faster, a person who is happier, a person who's sleeping better, a person who can think better. So just to recap, the paleo diet is a diet high in saturated fats, moderate amounts of protein, low carbohydrates, grass-fed animals or animal products, or free range, wild-caught fish, nuts and seeds, and herbs, low amounts of fruit, absolutely no processed food or sugar. Honey is allowed, by the way. It's a diet that basically will change your life as it did mine. So give it a try.